my name is Kai, and today I'm going to be talking about some of the lessons or takeaways from Liverpool's preseason tour in America. But before I get into it, it'd be great if you could like the video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter and Substack at The Counterpress. So I'm mostly going to be on the board today, but I'm going to be talking about a couple of different things. Of course, just left the second half team from Liverpool's 4-2 loss against Leeds up on the screen. So there are a lot of different takeaways from this preseason tour. I think the first thing I want to go through is academy players. So we saw a lot of different academy players get their chance in this tour. So Lewis Kumas, Calvin Ramsey, Mortala Ndiaye, Ndukwe, Luke Chambers, Kieran Morrison, Josh Sonny Lambie, Will Wright, Trey Andoni, James McConnell, Rio, and of course, Josh Abbey. I know there was also Harvey Davies, but honestly, he's not realistically going to play. So with these academy lads, I think it's pretty clear to me that Josh Abbey is going to stick around with the under-21s this season. Was pretty good, pretty physical for his age. I liked his ability to cut inside. I thought he was really good at shielding the defenses, like shielding away from the defenses, not losing the ball, being tidy when he needed to be. His decision-making in the final third wasn't necessarily great, although he didn't get a lot of chances to do that, obviously. But I think for a player of his age, I think he impressed enough. I think for the most part, it would be really beneficial for him to get a good season with the under-21s and be considered again during next preseason for a potential spot in the first team squad. He could easily still play in like a Carabao Cup game, but I just don't see him as like an integral part of the first team this season. Similarly, I think Will Wright also needs some time with the under-21s or maybe on loan. I think I wouldn't necessarily mind sending Will Wright over to maybe League One for a loan, League Two, somewhere at a similar level to Salford even, just so that he can kind of deal with physicality a bit more. He's a very low-touch, high-efficiency center forward. He has that hold-up and link-up. I think he has good physicality. I think it would be really beneficial for him to just get a couple more minutes in senior men's football, kind of be more of a consistent finisher, have more of a consistent impact on games, and kind of get some of the kinks out of his game, get some of the issues out of his game. I think it could really benefit him. And yeah, either another season with the under-21s or time in actual professional men's football lower down in the pyramid would, I think, do him a world of good. I think JSL will also get sent to the under-21s to play. I think he could easily develop in that Gree role for the under-21s. I think easily you could have Wright, Josh Sonny Lambie, Josh Abbey, and Joe Bradshaw as your front four in the under-21s this season. I think JSL would be great next to Will Wright in that role. I think they would look really good in Premier League 2. I think it'd be a good next step in development for JSL. He played, of course, limited minutes against Wrexham, and that's pretty much all he got, and that's all I pretty much expect him to get. I think he's maybe a little bit too early for JSL to be getting loaned out. I think he would really benefit from some more time in the under-21s, develop more consistent finishing, more broad impact on games. When he came on against Wrexham, he was kind of playing it very safe, like a lot of our academy players, and I think for a street baller like JSL, I'd like to see him continue developing that arrogance, and I think the best place to do that would be for the under-21s, similar to what Morrison was able to do last season. Obviously, we have to loan out Ndukwe, but I thought he was incredible. I think Hamburg would be a great loan for him. I thought he was incredible overall. He looked like a senior defender. I think the first time we saw him make mistakes was against a very physical team in Leeds, where he's getting spun by Nemecha. But ultimately, that's something that he's going to learn over time and improve with over time. He's going to learn that defensive side of the game. He's going to keep improving. He's going to learn how to be more and more positionally excellent. But he has all of the raw tools. He's tall. He's physical. He's got a good passing range. He seems to be intelligent. I think Ndukwe with a loan out abroad, because he can't be loaned somewhere else in the Prem or Championship, League 1, League 2, because in order to get loaned out to one of them, we'd need to have an open ESC spot, and so would they. We only have one, which we're giving to Mortala Ndiaye, so I imagine Ndukwe leaves out on loan. I think for Mortala Ndiaye, the best thing for him would be another season with the under-21s. I think he is one of the players that we're going to frequently call up to be part of the squad, especially if we're not signing a defender or we're not signing enough defenders. I think Ndiaye will be a massive part of the first team this season, but I think he is going to get some serious minutes with the 21s as well. He's going to be interchanging, I think, a bit, maybe like the early period that we had with Trey Andoni, where occasionally he was a part of the squad, but you also still saw him in the under-21s. I think it'll be similar for Mortala Ndiaye. I think he needs to continue to develop that positional side of the game as well. I think, again, he has all the tools to be a really good center back, tall, physical, great passing range. He's really neat and tidy on the ball, really silky on the ball, very technical. I just think, again, keep adapting with the under 21s, keep learning that positioning, and over time, he will become a good enough center back to probably get serious minutes for Liverpool. I think Ramsey is another player that I'm probably loaning out. I think maybe you could consider selling him at this point. I just don't really see Calvin Ramsey as good enough to start for Liverpool. Don't get me wrong, I do like him. He could maybe be a backup right back, but honestly, there are a couple of issues I saw in terms of his defensive positioning. Even though he's really technical, he's neat and tidy on the ball, I just think there's just not enough for me to keep him around. I think the club will probably loan out James McConnell because of how long he was injured. I think they're probably going to loan out Stefan Bajcetic as well if he can recover in time for the end of the transfer window. I do think that McConnell would be a decent asset to have around in the squad. I think even though he made mistakes in that first preseason game, it was his first preseason game, and his tactical understanding was great. He just made mistakes in terms of holding onto the ball slightly too long, not releasing it fast enough. These are kind of coachable fixes and are things that can be explained by preseason. He did try to track back. Maybe he wasn't fast enough or he was too tired, but he was trying to track back. You could see that he's always trying. I like how positive he is. I think he could even get some time with the 21s, but maybe the club are looking to loan him out. And if that's the case, it'll probably end up happening. But I think these 5 that remain should be the 5 that stick around with the first team. The benefit you get of Chambers is Iraola likes center backs who were also former fullbacks, can play both positions. You know, it shows a level of on-ball ability and aggression. Chambers has that. I think you could play as a left back for us. He could play as a left-sided defender for us, the left center back. He could also even play as a DM, like a Lindelof-style DM who splits the center backs. I think Chambers is a very decent asset. He's definitely someone who I'd be looking to keep around. Obviously, you're going to keep Rio and Trey. I think Rio could easily be one of the starters in the team. I think he could start on the right. He could get serious minutes on the right and the left. Easily, that's going to happen. I think Trey is easily going to get minutes in the pivot. He's proven right now that he's our second best midfielder in the pivot after Dom. I do still feel like we're going to sign a midfielder, but I do think Trey has kind of pushed himself further up in the pecking order after this preseason. I think he's looked excellent. I think Kumas, even though he doesn't have a really high level, he's a pretty low ceiling player. I think he can play across the front 4. He understands the tactics of what he needs to do very well out of possession. He knows what he needs to do in possession. I think he's a really good finisher, which means you can bring him on with 15 minutes to go to just get a goal. I think he's really positive. He wants to work hard. He's one of those players, maybe like a Bobby Clark, who you bet in, look to sell at the end of the season or the season after. I think it'd be a really decent asset for us, and I would probably keep him around to help shore up some of those squad depth numbers, and I think the club are intending to keep him around as well. And of course, I'm keeping Kieran Morrison. Now, after the first game against Sunderland where he scored, for the rest of that game and then the other games, people have been somewhat unimpressed with him. I've heard a couple of people be unimpressed with him. I thought he was great on the left. He was able to cut the ball inside to players, to keep playing them in. He keeps it really neat and tidy on the right. He's able to lob in these crosses to the back post with his left foot on the right-hand side. He's able to come inside and occupy the right half space. Him and Frimpong could be a decent combination. He's the wing fielder who moves inside for the right half space, Flow in the left half space, Frimpong bombing on. Him and Frimpong can mirror. He can go wide and Frimpong can go in the half space for a pass into a cutback. I think Morrison is a lot of, if given the platform, once he starts to develop the same arrogance that he had for the under-21s, I think he'll be able to cut inside and shoot and create chances and link up well with Flo and Isak. And he could be a really good creative outlet on that right-hand side. We don't really have that type of wide playmaker on that right. We're going to have Munoz and Ngamoa, obviously, who can do the one-on-ones and create cutbacks and crosses, but Morrison has that Elise-type wide playmaking. We even saw him briefly do that ball inside into Isak that reminded me of Elise into Mbappe. I would definitely be keeping Morrison around as well. I also think Callum Scanlon, who I didn't mention, I forgot to. Callum Scanlon, I think, should also leave out on loan. He showed a lot of positivity. I think we should loan him out to the championship, go to a team where he can play left back or left wing back, and see if he can develop into a good enough player. Very positive. We've vaguely seen him in like the Tavernier role. We've seen him on the right. I think realistically he should still be turned into like an Alphonso Davies style left back. Of course, he's a bit shorter. He's a similar height to Frimpong, but still, I think you send him to the championship, see if he can develop physically, improve that first touch, and if he can do it, I think he could be an excellent player for us in the future. We have a couple of really good left backs, Ewing, Eamon, Scanlon, Chambers, that could all get developed into different types of fullbacks and could all eventually contribute to the squad. Okay, so that's academy players. Now, for the senior players who went, we essentially saw these guys. I think Freddie Woodman, again, solid third choice keeper, obviously being kept around. Mamardashvili, I think, contrary to what some people say, solid second choice at the very least. Could he be first choice? I don't know. He'd have to improve his distribution a bit. I also think we need to start playing into his left foot more, position ourselves for a left-footed goalkeeper to receive the ball from, but regardless, that is just, it is what it is. Frimpong, I think, was a mixed bag overall. I think he had a really good game against Leeds, just pretty lackluster in the other games. I think he's obviously got overplayed, is what Iraola said. He didn't come off with an injury against Leeds. He obviously had the assist for Florian Wirtz's goal. I think Frimpong's a serviceable right-hand-sided player to play right wing or right back, but realistically, he's not going to be a starter and shouldn't be a starter in any of those positions. So I do worry a bit about the future of this team and whether or not we are going to sign a right back. But for now, I think you could keep Frimpong around. I think Joe Gomez, I don't know what we can even say. He played like 10 minutes and then was immediately injured and is out till September. Barely played any minutes. Of course, Jake has been injured for this entire America preseason tour, so he didn't even play. So Joe Gomez injured, he's injured. We haven't even seen any of Jake yet. And of course, Joe Gomez looked okay and then got injured, so he's not even reliable. I think Harvey Elliott struggled massively. I think Chiesa overall struggled to get into the game. He showed decent technical ability, Chiesa, and decent finishing, but he couldn't move around enough. He couldn't press enough. He was too late to everything. It's clear that this isn't a player who's physically ready to continue doing this in the Prem. But ultimately, I just haven't seen enough from Federico, and I would err on the side of probably selling him. And similarly with Elliott, too slow on the ball. I feel for him a bit. He barely played at Aston Villa. He had a really rough year, but he's come into this preseason. He's looked very lethargic. I don't see how he could really play in an Iraola pressing system. Of course, he understands it from a tactical perspective. He played under Klopp for years, but his body just isn't at the point where he can do it. I think going to a slower league or a league with more spaces, and for both of those, you would have either the Serie A for slower or the Bundesliga for more spaces, would be much better for him. I think he would do much better out there abroad. Can imagine him having a Scott McTominay style transformation out in Serie A, and I would just tell him to go do that at this point in his career. I think it's what's best for us and what's best for him. And with the academy players we have coming through, I just don't see the need with having Harvey. I think you can pretty much get a lot of what you would want from him out of Kieran Morrison, and you can get even more out of Morrison. He's also much better suited for the league. Look, I think we're probably going to keep Kerkez and Tsimikas. What I'll say about both of them is neither of them really impressed. I think I like what Kerkez does more because I think he understands what Iraola wants. He understands where he needs to be. He seems to be improving game by game. Costas has been pretty steady. He was really bad against Sunderland. He was okay against Leeds. So I don't really know what you can say about Tsimikas other than he's just okay. He's been okay. And he can't really do the build-up role. He can cross decently, but he's not particularly fast. Doesn't defend well. I think he'd easily be displaced by Chambers at left back at some point in the season. Maybe you keep him around, you sell him if you can, but I wasn't really impressed. But for now, I'll just leave him here. For me, I think Jones is definitely gone. I think what I showed, especially after the Leeds game, is he doesn't really seem to care as much as he used to. He has always struggled with tracking back runners, but he's kind of had this bit of a nasty attitude now. He's still struggling to track runners. He used to have the excuse of injuries as to why he was a bit slow or late to things, but now he doesn't have it anymore. He's been training with the first team. He's been struggling in virtually every game. He was okay against Sunderland. Then he was a little bit less than okay against Wrexham. And then he was just horrible against Leeds. So at this point, he's on a downwards trajectory. For Grav, I thought similarly, we see the same issues that we saw last season. He's still not tracking runners. He's still jogging back. I think we've seen improvements in possession. He was passing far quicker, taking less touches before passing. He wasn't just relying on his carrying, but out of possession, it's the same issues. Hopefully, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt right now compared to what I did on Twitter. I'm going to say for now that maybe Gravel improves still under Iraola. Maybe this is just his tiredness from the World Cup and just coming in doing these double sessions. He's not used to it. He's used to the Dutch periodization stuff. Maybe he even did that in his youth. So maybe it'll take time for him to get to his athletic potential. So for now, I'll also give him grace, although he is on thin ice. I thought both Flo and Isak have looked good in that first game, that first 45. Wirtz, of course, has the same issue of holding on to the ball too long, but everything else looked pretty good. For Isak, he's just getting about a bit. He's running around. He seems to be occupying good positions. I think once it starts coming off from him, he'll look really good. And of course, Dom has looked nothing short of excellent. He's proven me wrong once again. He could easily play in the pivot, I think, in the Alex Scott role. Of course, he's going to struggle a bit with dueling at times, with progressing the ball through passing, but his carries have been really strong. He just needs to get some short passes from his carries so that his carries get converted into progressive passes. If he can turn those carries into passes for Florian Wirtz, and then Wirtz can turn them into passes out wide or into Isak, I think we could have a clear structure, pattern of build-up centrally from whoever the 6 is to Dom to Wirtz. So honestly, I think we'll be fine with him in the pivot. We probably need to recruit at DM, and we probably need to recruit at right back in order to make this work very well, because as much as I love Trey and I think he's good, he's probably not a starter. But for now, let's just bring some of the depth back in. I think you have something along the lines of this as your depth for different positions, right? And then, of course, you're going to have Van Dijk coming back eventually, but this isn't that type of squad, obviously. I'm just showing preseason. This isn't a squad audit. These are the players who I think are viable from preseason that we've seen so far. I'm keeping Gomez and Jake here, even though they were injured. I guess realistically, you should take out both of these guys too. But then you don't have any center backs. So for, simplicity's sake, I'm just going to leave both of them here. But these are the guys who I would be trying to retain. You're obviously going to add some more players to this from Allison, Van Dijk, Munoz, McAllister, that type of thing. Ekitike when he's eventually fit. Bradley when he's eventually fit. Gakpo if he stays and doesn't go to Spurs. But this is like the team I think that performed well overall. And I'm now going to strip some of these players away so that I can talk a bit about tactics. And I think I'll just remove Jake and put in Duque here for simplicity's sake as well. So in terms of tactics, I think we saw a bunch of really interesting things that I think Iraola is going to probably keep long term. I think in the initial phase of build-up, we're seeing the fullbacks go really far out wide, but we're seeing a couple variations of this. So one is the fullbacks go really far out wide, and a player, one of the midfielders, occupies this position, and you get cleared, staggered build-up here, with your wingers also going very wide, and something like this. So the benefit here is that the goalkeeper can play to either of the center backs, can play directly to the fullbacks, or can play to the midfielder. The midfielder can turn, and you get clear progression from the 6 to the 8 to the 10 to the striker. Realistically, it could be either of these players, and then they just mirror. So it's really the first receiver, the second receiver, the 10, or second striker, and striker. You also can go out wide and exploit double width to get one player who gets to square up somebody, to then get the ball to the fullback, who can then find somebody. Usually it's like the striker, the second striker, and the other winger. So you have this nice form of progression as well. So you have solid wide play progression. Easily could become a pattern of play that we repeat over and over again. You can also see the ability for the goalkeeper to play directly into the winger, right? The winger can drop into this position, get played to directly, allows them to find either the midfielder or the center back, who can then find the fullback who goes further forward. And again, you create these positions that just allow you to find players in behind, maybe cut back. So we see that type of progression as well. It looks like Iraola wants. And this all comes from this wide center back position. If we do lose the ball, you still have a midfielder here who's helping to shield. But also we're seeing Iraola sometimes go a bit tighter, and then these players come inside. The wingers stay wide here, and you get this instead in a much tighter position with a more orthodox double pivot. I think the benefit that you get here is there's less of a gap between the center backs, obviously, so it's easier to recover the ball. But you also create these nice underlaps, like the fullback can get the ball and give it to the midfielder. The midfielder can progress while, the fullback goes in behind, find the winger, find the fullback, which means that you have a right footer on the right-hand side or a left footer on the left who can then cut back or cross. And again, the difference between this isn't that complicated. It's just, you can either move this guy further out, so this guy moves further out. Pretty easy from a thinking perspective. You just have to think about this guy. The fullback just thinks about what the center back's doing. And then if that happens, you move in, so then you go here and you break apart the double pivot from being horizontal to vertical, right? Or slightly diagonal. So this is an interesting pattern of play. This is a clear thing Iraola is doing. We're seeing two different types of pressing for the most part. We're seeing the 3-2 like this, and we're also seeing the, more 4-4-2. When we do this, we expect one of the center backs to step up to sweep because we don't have the player back. But this is also a much more aggressive, hard to bypass press. So he's using both. But also we're seeing this interesting tactic of forming a back five at times and still using the midfielder like this. The intrigue I have with this is you don't get the coverage, but I wonder if the idea for this is if you do bypass, Ndukwe or whoever is able to step up and cut it out. And maybe if you did the same thing with Van Dijk, you just have to mirror this a little bit. It's to step up and sweep and you still have a back four. Again, you don't want Frimpong as your auxiliary center back here. These are two fullbacks and a winger. But it's also an interesting tactic and it shows variation in the press. It's probably part of Iraiola's whole unpredictability thing. It's the same reason why we saw him swap Rio and Morrison sides. He wants wingers to be able to play on both sides. I think Rio's issue with this position was when he's in the inside forward position on his left, it was pretty bad. But imagining Rio here with an inverting fullback, I think it would work far better. And Morrison, of course, being a very all-around intelligent footballer, was able to just occupy this position in the Tavernier role, like I've said, he could maybe do, and just pass the ball inside to whoever's on-rushing. So it's definitely serviceable, and it shows that you can have a left footer on the left and still have it work without spamming crosses. It's just about cutbacks, keeping the ball on the ground, doing these neat little passing sequences and trying to score. Reminds me of the one Bournemouth goal way back when under Eddie Howe against Jurgen Klopp where they were just passing around and scored. I think that's part of it, part of a potential tactic that we could do. Yeah, but overall, we've seen the out-of-possession structure, we've seen the rest defense, them stepping out, all of the different pressing structures, the different types of build-up so far. We've obviously gone direct as well, hit the striker hits the ball down to the second striker can find an overlapping winger, right? Can find a winger on the left or the right, usually the left if Morrison is tucked back initially in the initial phase from defense to attack. And then have quick transitions. We saw a lot of transitions so far. Iraola is helping coach transitions. You can't really help players once they're in transition, but you can definitely help them make them. Coaching in transitions a bit difficult. Coaching to make transitions is also difficult, but it's actually coachable. It's something that's consistently coachable. And I think that's what Iraola is going for. But those are most of my real takeaways from this preseason tour. I'm looking forward to the Monaco game and both of the Como games on the same day, because obviously we're getting closer and closer to the season, so those are really where we're going to see how good the players are. Munoz, McAllister, Van Dijk, Allison, these types of players are coming back too, so hopefully we improve. But that is it for me in this video. If you liked the video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter and Substack at The Counterpress. And as always, thanks for watching.